It was one Saturday morning when my dad complained of chest pains. Within 30 minutes, he had a massive heart attack. And in 3 days, he was dead. That was by far the most profound thing that I'd ever experienced at that time. Then, 2 years later, my youngest brother, Isaac, was gunned down outside a bank by a gunman with an AK-47. Now, that was the second most tragic event that I had ever experienced in my life. That was devastating, and I had to deal with the grieving process. You're here today because you've probably had your own experience with grief. Maybe you've lost a loved one, a father, a brother, a friend, a mother, an aunt, or a child, and you don't know how to move on from this. Well, I have been down this road, and I'm here to tell you this, that you can work through this. There is no closure. That's just something people say to make people feel good about others and to make people feel like they can empathize. Well-meaning, but there is no closure. But you can work through this so that every year it gets better and better and better and better. Okay? So, I have developed 5 stages of grief, which I've called the Dr. Tilawen stages of grief, to be able to help you work through your stages of grief when it comes to getting through those steps after losing a loved one. So right now, if you have not subscribed, please go ahead and hit that red button, and also like our Facebook page at Dr. Tilawen and share it with others. So let's get started. So I developed the Dr. Tilawen stages of grief to be able to help you walk through your grieving process. And the first stage of it, stage number 1, is profound sadness. The profound sadness is such that you have maximum grief, you have depression, you got anxiety, and you're not in denial. Most people say that, oh, I'm in denial. Nobody's ever in denial. If I ask you right now, what happened to your loved one, you're not going to be like, well, I don't know. You know exactly what happened to your loved one. So I don't understand when people say that they are in denial. So they have profound sadness. This is a very, very devastating place to find yourself, because this is the first time that you're addressing this and realizing that your loved one is dead. And this is quite an experience to have, because for most of you, you've never had this. Some of you, you've already have this kind of experience before. And when this wears off, you get into this stage number 2, which is the blame. You see, you're trying to make sense of what has happened, and you're feeling like somebody has to be responsible for this one way or the other. So you may blame the person for not protecting themselves. I remember I was thinking about my dad. Why didn't he just go for medical checkups? He could have known that his arteries were clogged. But my dad was a very stubborn individual. He came from the old school where unless my arm is like, falling down because I'm sick, then I'm not sick, no preventative medicine. He didn't like going to the hospitals. And I started thinking, well, if he had done that, he would still be alive. And for my brother Isaac, I was thinking, well, why did you even go around that bank? You would still be alive. Then another part of this, I also was blaming myself. I should have known this. I should have told my brother, hey, listen, don't go to the bank. Well, I'm not psychic. There's no way I could have known that there was a gunman. With my dad, there's no way I would have known that he was going to have a heart attack. But this stage here, where you're now trying to lay blame on somebody or something. If you're a spiritual person, some of you blame your higher power, God. And you're thinking, God, if you're there, why did you let this happen? I love my brother, I love my dad, I love my friend, my uncle. This doesn't make any sense. I pray. I go to church every single Sunday, and I go and pray. Why did you let this thing happen? And for me, I was there. I was really mad at God, because thinking that what did he do to deserve this level of violence on him? Now, my dad, maybe I understood a little bit. He was much older. He had lived his life. Yes, natural death. But for my brother, that is where the blame. I was having this survivor guilt, this blame that I was stuck in. Then when you're done with this blame, you get to this regret. Okay, this regret over here, okay, this one right here can be a place where you can get stuck. You can stagnate in this place of regrets and not ever go anywhere, because you started a little bit when you're blaming this survivor guilt thing, where you are alive and your loved one is dead. You are now regretting. And this guilt can grip you, whereby you're thinking, I don't deserve to be alive. You may think, you know what, it should have been me. With me, I was thinking, this is my youngest brother. Okay, I have lived my life, and I'm thinking, why wasn't it me? It should have been me, because he's so young. He was so young. He had not even lived his life. And so when it comes to that, there's regret about things that were not said. For most of you who are in this place whereby you're regretting, there are things that you wanted to say to your loved one, to your dad, to your mom, to your friend, to your uncle, to your neighbor. There were things that you wanted to say to your family member who's now gone, to a friend, that you cannot say to them now. Some of you go to a graveside and try to talk over, at the graveside to try to resolve some of those things. But there is, you want to make amends. You want maybe forgiveness. There are things maybe you never told them that you love them, and now they're gone. And now you're thinking, why didn't I do that when I had the time? Which is probably a lesson for all of us, that if someone is alive today, I'm challenging you right now. If you are angry with your brother, if you're angry with your wife, your child, your uncle, anybody out there that you love, please tell them you love them. Say, remember that song, say what needs to be said? Because if you don't, then when they're dead, you are left to regret. And this can be a very, very sad place to find yourself, because now you have the guilt and then you have the sadness, because you cannot make amends with someone at that time because this person has died. Now, so if you're able to navigate this regret, you now can enter one of the most life-changing stages over here, as I've called this stage internalization. And I've also called it a turning point, because this is where you can either break free from the grief that you're dealing with, or you can get stagnated here. Because this is where, up until now, you really still haven't really gotten to that place where you are internalizing what has happened. Because you're still sad, probably, you're still blaming, you're still having regrets, and now you're over here now where you're internalizing. When you internalize this, that means you're now you're taking that physical being that you knew, whether it was your parent, your child, your friend, your neighbor, and you transform that being into a spiritual being. Okay, follow me here. The transformation that happened is such that when you think about them, because you can't see them in a physical world as we know it, but now they live in spirit world, in your spirit, in your heart. So that when you think about them, you have fond memories about them. When you think about them, you are glad that they were your mom, your dad, your friend, and all that. So you're transforming them, and doing that. This internalization is where now you're realizing everything. What has happened from here is irreversible. It has happened when you're not going to go back and see them walk the face of the earth again, and you are now have to break free from those expectations that you'll ever see them again. But you can now internalize them so that you can think about them. So this turning point is very important, because this is what transforms into a very, very good place to be in, which is the healing and the empowerment. When you're in this healing and empowerment, you come to identify this person, you start to appreciate them. Some of the things, you have what I call positive recall here, and you have minimum sadness here, because when you have this positive recall, you now have, you humanize them. You even some of the things that they had done that was serious, now it's funny. So this is a good place whereby, and I always tell people this, if you want to really go on this journey of grieving and grieve to get to this healing, you have to get to this place of empowerment, because you now start to identify the person and say, this person was funny, this person was goofy, was silly, this person was clever, this person was smart, this person was kind, generous. See, all those things that now made this person who they are. And the idea is to be able to now, this is more of like a celebration of their lives, right? This is more of a celebration, because over here you're not celebrating anything. This is all negative that is going on over here. Until you hit this turning point, you are still, in a very negative place. This empowerment here is that you recall your loved one in a much, much better, way, because you now appreciate who they were as a person. Like, I'm glad that they were, that person was my mom. I'm glad that was my friend. I'm glad that this was my dad. This was my child. This was my neighbor. Because everybody has all those sides of them. You have the clever side, the goofy side, the stupid side. That's what life is all about, and that is how you start to celebrate. Once you start celebrating, and this was very important when we were, I would sit around with my siblings, and we would talk about Dad. We would talk about my brother Isaac. And in the beginning, we were here, where we would talk about how, I can't believe, somebody shot him. Well, he didn't deserve that. My dad, I can't believe that he didn't go out there and make sure that, he didn't have a heart attack by going to the doctor, routinely, and all that stuff. And when you're stuck at that, it's almost like you're still attending a funeral, okay? It's like you're still attending a funeral. When you get to this empowerment, you're now breaking free from that. And what you're saying is, this person was more than the heart attack, was more than being shot. It was more than the disease, more than the accident. Whatever it is that took your loved one, that killed your loved one, they were more than that. So therefore, what I challenge you to do when you're here is to be able to identify stories that were relevant to your loved one. So if there was a funny story, there was a silly story, there was a story that was just like serious at the time, but now it's funny. Share those stories, and the more you talk about your loved one in that way, it allows you, this is the magical thing of talking about more character of the person at this time, is that it allows you to smile. It allows you to laugh again. It allows you to be to have these positive emotions. Because up until now, you have all these negative emotions, like that you're dealing with, sadness, sorrow, depression. All that has been part of this. It takes somewhere between 6 months to about 3 years to grieve to get to this healing process. But I've seen people who get there within a month. So everybody has their own grieving timetable. No two people will grieve the same way. Avoid getting stagnated in these 3 stages of grief over here. The stages are the profound sadness, blame, and regret. Because when you're here, you're angry, you're sad, you're crying all the time about your loved one, and that is not a good place to be. You want to work towards the healing and empowerment, and the first place to that, when you break free from that, is when you do the internalization. Because this is, like I said, it was a turning point going into the healing process. I know it took me about maybe 5 years to get to this place here because of such tragic things that happened, especially with my brother. And I never thought I would be here. So I know you can work towards there. So please continue, and you too will get to a place where when you think about your loved one, you think about them in a fond way where you're glad that you actually were part of their lives when they were alive. So if this video has helped you, please consider subscribing by clicking that red button and also sharing your comments. Please also go to Facebook and like the Dr. Tilawen Facebook page so that we can continue to bring you more videos like this on healing and empowerment.